Then, to my utter horror and amazement, the dark object I was looking at almost seemed to double in height. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Talk About Strange. Thank you for joining me here today. I just want to let you know that I just got done doing a video, and I was going on a little bit of a rant about how I feel about how things are going with the channel and things that I think are happening. So, not to dive and become a conspiracy theorist, but I got some thoughts on that. So, if you want to find out what I talked about, go over there and check that video out. I'm going to have that posted, and let me know what you think about that. But until then, I got another very interesting story here, a Bigfoot in UK. We don't get a lot of these. And so here again, this is another really important story. So I'm just curious how well it's going to get out there. How many people are going to see this and hear this story? Because it's kind of big news. I mean, anybody I've talked to, or most people I've talked to in the UK said there are no Bigfoot or large cryptids in UK. Well, we've been finding out lately that that might not be correct, that there are more than you might think. And this story is from 30 years ago that kind of gives us a really good detailed story about a Bigfoot encounter that they had in somewhere near Scotland. So this really big stuff, really good stuff. So stick around. You're going to enjoy this, and let me know what you think. And I guess just a couple of reminders here. Check it out. I connected a buy me a cup of coffee or buy me a coffee, and I put it on my homepage. So there's things I've been doing to try and increase the production of this channel and grow. So, any contributions you want to make, use that buy me a coffee if you want. And most of that goes to helping this channel grow and supporting people who are out there doing this kind of work. So it's kind of a big deal, really. And we're trying to get to a point where this platform becomes a real major platform. So stick around with us and watch it grow and see what happens here. And we have memberships, and we have a Talk About Strange store that has a lot of really awesome stuff. So go check out the store. I try the best I can to keep the prices reasonable on the stuff. But I mean, I'm paying pretty good prices for the stuff, and it's good. It's really good stuff. So there's a small percentage that I make on the stuff, but that percentage does help. So there's some really cool stuff. Check it out. All right, let's get started right on this. Let me take a drink first. Boy, we got to get this going, huh? All right. I don't know if you've ever received any reports of a Bigfoot from within the United Kingdom. If not, well, here's your first one. And it pretty much is. Firstly, I wish to remain anonymous. Unfortunately, I have learned from previous experiences of telling others my encounter that ridicule, accusations, lying often follow. Previous to my encounter, I had no prior interest or knowledge of Bigfoot other than what I had seen on TV and in the movies. I honestly rationalized it through that it was all fiction. Here we go. About 30 years ago, I was out on a weekly walk with my dog in a dense wooded area within the Northumberland area of northeast England, but this particular area I had never visited before. My then dog was a lurcher breed, commonly used in hunting small game, rabbits, etc. As we have no natural large predators in the UK, my dog was tempered that it feared nothing and would often get into scraps by chasing horses and cows, which always ended okay, as he had flawless recall and always obeyed my vocal commands. This particular mid-evening, whilst walking through a thick brush scrub area, my dog suddenly froze about 6 or so meters in front of me as we approached a clearing between brush and the tree line in the distance. This startled me, as he had never previously done this. As I got closer to my dog, I noticed his hairs on his back were stood up, and his whole body, head, and gaze was transfixed in the direction of that tree line across the clearing. So naturally, I looked in the same direction as my dog, thinking it was probably just a dog or a person or possibly even a deer, as we still do have wild deer in this general area. It was mid-evening and the light was steadily beginning to dim, but still not quite so dark enough that I had to use my mini pocket torch flashlight, which I always carry. Incidentally, we can't carry or use firearms in the public land within the UK as there are severe restrictions, even back then. And up to this day, I don't own a firearm. So obviously, I didn't have one with me. Anyway, as I looked into the same direction as my dog, I saw in the distance what appeared to me at first to be a large, dark, half tree stump. Like a severe wind had taken it down, and the upper part of the large tree and only the lower part remained standing, with the upper half being possibly removed at some time during for possible firewood or etc. I remained looking directly at this supposed stump for about 10 to 15 seconds. Then, to my utter horror and amazement, the dark object I was looking at almost seemed to double in height, and it moved slightly to the left of its original position as if something suddenly stood up. I estimated it to be now at least 7 to 8 foot tall. My mind seemed to be racing 100 miles an hour as I tried to figure out what it could be. I remember thinking it couldn't be a man or an animal, as no man is this wide and tall both together. There's no other animal in the UK that it could possibly be except for maybe from a zoo. Then I thought perhaps something escaped from a zoo enclosure. But the nearest zoo to that area at the time was a distance away in Scotland. It was like my mind was shutting down and freezing, like when an old computer freezes and crashes, as I was desperately struggling to rationalize what I was looking at. As I continued staring at the object or figure, it seemed as though it turned to the way it was facing me in my direction and began to almost kind of shuffle from side to side. I wasn't close enough to make out any truly distinctive features other than the figure now seemed to resemble that of a massive human, man-type figure with what appeared to me to be a head, body, arms, legs, if that makes sense. But the head seemed closer to the body, with not so much of a pronounced neck as humans have, more bulky, and at the top of what seemed to be his head seemed to be tapered off like it was more rounded. This thing was massive in bulk and height. The ground between me and the figure was relatively flat, so instinctively knew it couldn't be a trick of perception due to the differing ground level vantage point, which made my anxiety fear almost reach a meltdown point. The shuffling from side to side seemed to stop. Then I heard from the figure direction the most gut-wrenching low, incredibly low, bass level sort of whoop noise. It was so low that I felt it sort of bounce off my chest, like my chest was rattling. At that point, I was in absolute panic mode, and I now understood what it meant when people said they were frozen with fear while listening to people talk about war zones and such on TV. The figure then began to move hurriedly towards the tree line. What I then understood to be a tree line behind it, it didn't seem to be sprinting, but I couldn't figure out how it appeared to be, to me, to be moving so quickly and almost gliding above the surface, if that makes sense, because there wasn't any thrashing of the arms or legs. It seemed to be covering a distance at pace just by simple movement. It's difficult to explain that. I'm sorry. I completely understand. And if you've seen any of these, especially this recent video of a Klansman, Bigfoot, that was striding up across the hill, a stride that was just remarkable and smooth. I was saying that when I ran in the woods, I used to run in the woods for fun and exercise. You're all over the place. You have to be. And this being was moving, like you said, at a stride that was just absolutely remarkable, and the speed was remarkable, and it was almost at a glide. It was so fluent. It eventually disappeared amongst the tree line, presumably into the wooded area, and against difficult to explain. Again, this is difficult to explain, sorry. But I didn't immediately run in the opposite direction, as I was fixed in that spot in total, utter fear or mental incapacity for at least 10 to 15 minutes afterwards. I was constantly glancing at my dog, who still seemed to be frozen in spot as well. So much so that when I did eventually decide to leave in the direction that I came, I at first had to physically pick up my dog, who was a very large dog, and staggered along out for about a quarter of a mile, still carrying him until I had to put him down, whereby he still seemed tense, but was able to follow me, walk along my side on a leash. I got back to my car, placed my dog in the back, and I still didn't know how I managed to drive home safely as the adrenaline and fear was still pumping through my body. I lived alone at the time, so couldn't immediately tell anybody of my experience, and most definitely did not want to go to the police or local authority, as I thought they obviously wouldn't believe me and would probably have me committed to an asylum or a mental hospital. I still had to work at the time, and my house wasn't fully paid off, and I didn't want to lose my dog either. I know that might sound stupid looking back, but that was my way of thinking. It took me months before I was able to tell somebody I worked with, who in turn ridiculed me in the workplace. Oh, it's horrible. That's horrible. That's ridiculous. You don't have to believe it, but you don't have to ridicule either. That severely harmed my spirit, so much so I cut all ties with that particular person other than when I had to physically be in his presence for work, which I hated. Yeah, I get it. I get it. It's almost a form of bullying. It's ridiculous. I have been met with ridicule, accusations, and lying by others, which I mentioned earlier, so I'd rarely tell anyone now. This experience has, however, led me to be able to search for questions and answers in my own mind, like how is it possible for such a creature to survive and exist without being killed or captured in this British Isles, as the UK's overall landmass is tiny in comparison by, say, the USA, Africa, Australia, for example. Good point. All right, so was I hallucinating? But how could my dog be hallucinating at the same time? Neither of us ate any particular plants or mushrooms in that area to have that kind of an incident. However, I did discover through speaking with a few local farmers, without telling them my experience, that sheep in a particular area have been going missing, and sheep carcasses have been turning up over the decades in obscure locations. I also learned that the government has been actually compensating the farmers for their losses, but with very little or no interest or investigations as to what was taking them. As I stated earlier, there are no predators large enough to carry a fully grown sheep in the UK. So other than a fox taking a lamb or a dog killing, they don't take the whole sheep. I occasionally watch various Bigfoot related YouTube videos, hoping perhaps to stumble across one that was similar to my experience within UK, but they are almost non-existent, with the majority obviously reported in the USA. Anyway, thanks for your time. I do understand that you may be skeptical of my account, but I'm telling you with all sincerity that this did indeed happen. God bless. Wow. All right. So there you go. Okay. First, I want to say thank you so very much for sharing this story with us. Phenomenal story. I mean, absolutely. And so much what you said makes so much sense, and it just a lot of sense, really. So I get a lot of people from the UK telling me that there are not cryptids there. Then I get a few that say, oh, yes, there is. And I haven't looked it up. And there's been cryptid sightings around there. Where they hide, I do not know. There are woods, and they are stealthy. So they're very capable of eluding people. And then other than the and that's probably why it's very, very, very seldom that anybody has these encounters. Great stuff. And again, how many people are going to see this video? Is this video going to be suppressed? Is it going to be kept out from people being able to watch it? I wonder. I mean, I can't help but wonder. This is Bigfoot in the UK. Bigfoot in the UK. Hello. Bigfoot in the UK. This is no joke, right? I mean, this is a real, true human being sending in their encounter, admitting to the kind of embarrassment that they've been afraid or have been shamed for talking about it, especially someplace like that, right? And so they're sharing this story, but who's going to hear about it? How many people? 1,500, 2,000? When probably 1 million people should see this and hear this about this. I mean, everybody should hear about this. Thousands, hundreds of thousands. So anyway, I mean, should hear this story, and they probably won't. It'll be very limited, and it's a shame. It's a real shame that they're not being put out there. All right, so I'll do the best I can for you to get your message out here, and I just really appreciate you considering me to be the person to share it when there's a lot bigger channels out there who do get a lot more views. So I really appreciate it. A lot of respect. So. Anyway, that's it for now. Thank you for joining me here. I don't want to rant on too long. Lately, I'm on a little bit of a tangent trying to figure out what's going on, because, you know, I represent you guys and your stories, and I want that to be represented the best I possibly can. So if it's being suppressed or withheld, then that really upsets me, because I'm not able to do the job that you asked me to do for you. So anyway, all right, that's it for now. Thank you so very much. I will see you again really soon.